A monster is in the house. A 400-pound creep about to molest a 14-year-old girl in the shower.
What the f are you doing?
Stopped in his tracks when this Marine dad goes commando to catch a predator.
You're lucky I don't have a shotgun right now. I got one loaded. For your
You're listening to the unbelievable audio of the ultimate fighting match between parent and pervert.
Don't move until the cops get here and save you from me!
Brandon Moore exacts Texas-style revenge after he learns his best friend had been molesting his daughter Madeline for 5 years. He gave Crime Watch Daily permission to use her photographs.
My plan was to murder him. Just straight up. Would have had no qualms.
You really were gonna kill him?
Oh, absolutely.
How did this disgusting deviant weasel his way into Brandon's family, grooming his young daughter to do the worst things imaginable?
I'm not a child!
The nightmare begins when Maddie's family moves from Minnesota to Waco, Texas. The first person Brandon and his wife Leone meet, their new neighbor, a single man named Sean Foster.
We came down one weekend. Leone and I drove down to buy a house, and that was the weekend that we met Sean Foster.
Your very first weekend in Texas.
Yes. He was parking in his driveway, and we were talking about that we couldn't afford the after-school program for all 3 kids, and he said, "What do you need me to do?" And we said, "Well, we need somebody to pick up the kids after school."
It's a hot Texas summer day, and he helps us clean the whole backyard. And I'm like, wow, here's a really nice neighbor. You know, who wants to be out here working in the heat, let alone on somebody else's house?
The so-called nice neighbor quickly becomes a member of the family.
How big a part of the family did Sean Foster become?
A regular part of the family. We ended up switching house keys. He went on vacation with us, and he had spent several holidays with us.
Everyone in the family called him Uncle Sean. Everyone but Maddie.
I just remember thinking, like, there's something wrong with this guy. Like, he's not okay.
You instantly picked up on that.
Yeah, every time he came around, I felt sick before he even started doing things.
Maddie, now 16 years old, wants the world to hear her horror story. Her father gave Crime Watch Daily permission to interview her. She says she was only 9 years old when Foster began his sick seduction.
He would take pictures of me.
Naked?
No, he'd be like, oh, turn around, and he would take pictures of my butt.
Maddie says those seemingly innocent pictures turned into some not-so-innocent touching. Something, she says, that confused her.
You were being inappropriately touched, but you weren't sure.
Yeah, like, I didn't have the words for it. I was 9 at first, and I was like, you know, why is he touching my chest? Like, I don't have anything there. As I got older, I was just like, okay, no one talks about what this is, so I must be the only person going through it. And I didn't want to come forward and be like, hey, this is happening, and have people say, oh, it's normal, or have people say, like, oh, there's something wrong with you.
Maddie seemed locked in a prison with a pedophile as her jailer.
I remember that he wanted to take Madeline to go get her nails done. And so they went and got other little hairdo things and stuff like that, little barrettes for her to put in her hair.
What kind of a man does
Right.
that?
And I remember thinking that's really weird, and Maddie came home upset. I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, she just got upset. She couldn't get her nails done.
Leone and Brandon thought Maddie's depression was because of some of the boys at school, but it was the adult creep across the street.
So when guys at school started calling me mean things and picking on me, it was just like, they know I'm a slut because, you know, Sean's been calling me that since I'm 9, so I obviously am. And so my stomach would hurt so bad from like being nervous and the anxiety. I would have to go down to the office, to the nurse, because I was in actual pain from all the stress. And finally it got so bad, my mom was like, maybe we just need to move schools. So we moved schools. The problem wasn't the school, it was Sean.
Maddie says she lived in fear.
Did you feel threatened by him?
Yeah, I knew he had a lot of guns.
So when they move a few miles down the highway to the Waco suburb of Lorena, she thinks that would be the end of her ordeal. But she says it only got worse. Foster still came over, and she says when she was in the shower, Foster surprised her by walking right into the bathroom.
I hear the door open. I'm just like, what do I do? Am I just supposed to pretend like he's not in here? And the door had shut. And I was like, okay, he's gone. And I start like washing my face. And I turn, and he's staring at me. I just stood there.
Maddie continued to suffer in silence. Then Foster makes an offer. He hires her to work for his pool construction company.
Did he buy her work clothes?
He did.
Then when she put on some of the stuff, they were these skimpy little shorts. And I was like, why are we getting those? That's all they have.
Who said that?
Sean.
part? Skimpy shorts to work.
Yeah.
And he bought them.
Yeah.
The warning signs were starting to flash red. Brandon says he thought it strange that Maddie got paid for doing no real work.
So you think he just made up this whole I'll employ you at my pool company thing to have more time with her?
It was a pretty low-skilled type of position. She said, I don't want to work for Sean anymore, and we said, why? And she goes, I don't know what I'm getting paid. Sometimes we just go to his house and we hang out.
Maddie says one day while riding to a construction job, the conversation turned scary.
He told me that he wanted me to try drugs. I was like, you have drugs? And he goes, yeah, I have some at my house. And that just scared me. I was like, oh my God. So we're riding along, and then a few minutes later, he was like, I'm gonna have sex with you. And I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna drug me and rape me. And I was just like, oh my God, this is gonna be it for me. This is as bad as it can get.
That's when Maddie knew she would no longer be a silent victim.
That's the biggest thing that pushed me to tell, because I was like, that's too far. Oh my God, this is gonna go way farther than I thought it would.
But just as she was about to tell, her father had the mother of all headaches and went to the ER.
The doctor said, we think this might be a brain aneurysm. It could get serious.
Sean offered to watch Maddie. After all, he was her Uncle Sean. It turns out Brandon's headache was just a pulled muscle. But when they came home from the hospital, they had a rude awakening. Leone says Sean was sleeping in Maddie's bedroom.
And what did you think of that?
It blew my mind. Why are you in my little girl's room? Go sleep on our bed if you want a bed.
Or sleep on the couch?
Absolutely.
The next day, Maddie had to go to the doctor for a physical. Leone was running behind schedule, so Foster offered to take her.
So I was a couple minutes late, and I walk in, and it's like the nurses already got Maddie back there, and she's trying to get me to come, and Sean's bamboozling me. He's like, yeah, I was trying to go back, but they wouldn't let me. And
So what was he trying to do?
go back into the appointment with Madeline and be in the exam room with her. Which, why? I can tell something's wrong with her. And then I'm like, so what's up? And she goes, well, he texts and drives, Mom. And it happens a lot. And I'm like, is there anything else you need to tell me? And she goes, well, yeah, Mom. He touches me and he tries kissing me a lot.
Leone is livid, but she waits until she gets home so she can tell Brandon in person.
And she goes, Sean's been touching Madeline. And he came over and he touched her while you were in the hospital. And if she would have told me over the phone, I would have gone to his house and I would have killed him. I said, I need to go do something. And so she drove me over to our pastor's house. And I was really thankful he was there. But at first he was like, well, I'd want to kill him too.
That would be murder, even in Texas. How could they get ironclad evidence against Foster and stop him for good? Next, Leone and Brandon take matters into their own hands.
I caught him as he turned this corner to run out.
The explosive confrontation and the sting operation that literally catches the predator in the act.
You don't touch a 14-year-old girl!
Maddie Moore is the victim of a pedophile. Her parents' best friend, Sean Foster.
The second time I was alone with him, he grabbed my butt.
The 400-pound pervert began fondling her when she was only 9, even walking in on her as she took a shower.
That was just terrifying. What is he gonna do to me? My siblings are in the other room. I don't want to scream because I don't want to scare them.
Maddie, what were you afraid of?
I was afraid of him raping me because I was completely naked, and it would have been easier than if I was fully clothed.
And she says that wasn't the first time. When Maddie's mom, Leone, found out, all kinds of dark thoughts raced through her mind.
I'm thinking, give me 10 minutes in a room with that man, strap him down and let me do some things to him that are very painful.
Maddie's dad, Brandon, thought it was simpler just to kill him.
I was just gonna put my shotgun right here and just pull the trigger. I was imagining, man, you're gonna have bits of head everywhere. You're gonna have brains and it's gonna be bloody and we're gonna have to move, but it's worth it.
So what kept you from doing that?
I thought, okay, that'll make a big mess and I don't want my girls to deal with that.
Or deal with the loss of their father. Brandon would surely go to prison for murder, so this former Marine with a PhD instead formulated a brilliant plan. Set a trap, catch the perv red-handed, and hand him over to the cops. The predator would become prey.
So I told Leon, I said, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna text from Maddie's phone.
Since Maddie worked part-time for Foster's pool construction business, she texts him regularly. Brandon texts using the language of a 14-year-old girl.
I guess I can work today. Let me take a shower and I'll be out in 15 minutes.
Brandon says Foster knew they always kept the back door unlocked.
I'm gonna lock the front door, turn on the shower and the light in the bathroom and bedroom and shut both doors. And as soon as Sean comes in the back door, you call the police and I'll keep him here.
Leone watches from a couple of doors down. Brandon hides his weapons so he won't be tempted.
I went and put the shotgun and the knife in the garage and I thought, I'm just gonna deal with him with my hands.
You put the weapons in the garage to keep you from reaching for them?
I was perfectly willing to murder him and then take the risk until Leon said, you're the main provider, the kids need their dad.
With Mom in position as a lookout and Dad hiding in the house, the trap was set.
The tension is thick as the humid Texas air. Will Foster actually take the bait? Yes, he does.
As soon as I see him walk through our back gate and open the back door, I dial 911. I say, there's a man in my house that does not belong in my house. Last night, we turned him in as a child molester, and he's in my home. I said, I just watched him walk in the back door. And I said, and to be honest with you, my husband's in there, and he's going to get beaten up. And she goes, have you trapped him? I said, I guess you could call it that.
Brandon sets his phone to record the confrontation. Listen closely. You can hear Foster rip open the shower curtain so hard, the rings fly off the rod.
Hey, what the are you doing? What are you doing? I haven't done anything to her. You don't touch a 14-year-old girl.
Brandon doesn't wait for the cops. Filled with rage, he pummels the pedophile.
I don't know you. Stay down. I'm down. Stay. I'm down. Don't hit me anymore.
I jumped up on his back and I choked him until he went down in this corner. And that's when I had lost all composure.
Don't move until the cops get here and save you from me. Oh my God, you broke my glasses. You're trespassing in my house. Get down. I'm not gonna get down. I'm not gonna touch you. You're not moving. I have to move. I have to go. No, you're staying here until the cops get here. You're through.
I kicked him a couple of times and then he rolled on his side and I started kicking him in the hernia and the stomach. I almost lost it completely and I choked him until he slammed into the front door and into the wall. And as soon as he was down, I just started kneeing him in the face. And then I see 2 police officers standing outside the front door. I was like, okay, I can't kill him in front of the police.
Foster is in cuffs, charged with multiple counts, including burglary, intent to commit indecency with a child, and indecency with a child by contact. Bail was set high, $500,000.
Daily, we would check the McLennan County jail roster, and it was so nice to see his name on there. And the day that we woke up and checked it and it wasn't on there, it was like, oh, we have to go tell Maddie he's not locked up. And he's out.
Foster makes bail and rejects a plea deal that would have given him 20 years in prison. He decides to take his chance with a jury. Thoughts of murder and revenge filled Brandon's mind once again.
It's taking too long. I'm going to go kill him.
Finally, Foster gets his day in court, taking the stand in his defense, denying the allegations. Prosecutors Hillary Laborde and Evan O'Donnell tore into him.
How important was that audio tape?
I think the audio tape was very important because it took the jury to the offense. It's very rare that you have an eyewitness to child sexual abuse. She wasn't being abused that day. It was certainly an attempt by Sean Foster to see her in the shower.
But the most powerful moment, Maddie bravely testifies against the man who she says abused her for nearly a third of her life.
Were you scared when you took the stand?
I was more annoyed than anything, to be honest. I got up there and I was really nervous. It was really hard seeing him, but I told myself, you're not gonna cry. Sean liked to make me cry. He thought it was funny. He wouldn't look at me. And I said, you won't look at me now because you know you're guilty. And I was like, we both know you did this.
What did Foster say was his defense?
It really wasn't much of one. You know her almost as well as her parents do. So tell us why she would make this up about you. And he just had no explanation.
The jury agreed.
My 6 favorite words: guilty, 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 and then guilty.
Foster was sentenced to 55 years in prison.
I don't think he'll survive 5. I really hope the other prisoners find out what he's there for, and they do the things that prisoners do to child molesters.
Maddie, do you feel you've gotten justice?
I do. Honestly, though, I do wish that they gave like the death sentence or stuff like this or life, but they don't. And so he got a lot longer than I was expecting.
Brandon didn't face any charges for beating the pedophile to a pulp. Sweet justice for a sweet girl, forever grateful her ex-Marine dad rescued her from the clutches of a creep.
Now I know he's in prison and my dad beat you up, so it works out.
Right now, I want to bring in attorney Jenny Hutt to talk about this fine line. As parents, we get it. I've caught my fair share of predators. But what are the legal ramifications of taking the law into your own hands here?
Right, so Chris, legally, you cannot harm another person unless you are in imminent danger of bodily harm or a person right by you is in imminent danger of bodily harm. So in this case, had this father impulsively hurt the perpetrator, he could have been held criminally liable. And that would have made things a lot tougher for him ultimately.
So he could have been prosecuted,
yes,
and potentially the molester could have gone scot-free.
Well, I'm not sure that the alleged molester could have gone scot-free with this level of evidence that was accumulated, but it certainly would have gotten Brandon in trouble. Then he could have been brought up on charges by the state.
And just to be clear, we're not advocating anybody become a vigilante here. Jenny Hutt, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it.